Hello and welcome to another episode of Tech Time Today. I'm your host, Jeff Welpley. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about Angular's new deferred views feature. We're going to go over an article from my good friend, Jessica Janiuk. And we're going to I'm going to give you my thoughts on some of where this may be headed in the future. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you have any thoughts on either the article, on deferred views, on Angular in general, or anything that I'm saying, definitely enter them in the comments below. All right, so this is an article that Jessica put out a couple months ago, right after the deferrable views feature was added to Angular. I'm going to include the link in the description. And I won't read this verbatim. You should definitely go to this article and read it for yourself, but I'm kind of going to give you a summary and some of my thoughts and views about what is in the article. So Jessica talks about how they did tie the deferrable views to the new at syntax. So for those of you who don't know, in Angular previously, in HTML templates, pretty much everything was baked into HTML. So anything that was Angular in the template had to be sort of pseudo HTML, I guess you could call it. You would include an attribute in an HTML element where you would put some Angular code, or you would have the squiggly brackets for putting in a variable or something like that. But in one of the more recent, in Angular 17, is when they introduced this. They added this at syntax, and within this syntax, which I'll show you in a second, an example, they included control flow, or included deferrable views, which is basically where you can optimize your initial bundle size and improve the initial load of your application by allowing you to declaratively lazy load portions of your template. So for those of you who don't know, right now, lazy loading within Angular, previously before Angular 17, you could do it based off of a route level. So in your router for a given path, like let's say /foo, you could say in your Angular router, so /foo, don't create a separate bundle, JavaScript bundle for those. And only when the person navigates to that bundle do you actually, or to that path, do you actually download that JavaScript, okay? With deferrable views, it can be a subset of a template. So it's not just a path, it's like within a particular page, a subset of the page. And then you can define as part of the defer syntax how and when it actually, that separate package with just that subset gets actually loaded. So lazy loaded routes still work like before, but you can kind of use this combination of deferrable views, in combination with lazy loaded routes to best optimize your app. So here's kind of an example in this code of how deferrable views might work, where you specify, in this case, that the comments component, like in theory, this comments HTML here, that is like an actual component that may be pretty involved and have a lot of JavaScript involved with it. So when Angular is building your application, it will see this defer and it will create a separate JavaScript package that just contains this subset so that it can be loaded on the fly, later after the initial load. So that makes the initial load faster. And, you put a placeholder so that what does the user see until the actual full JavaScript is loaded. And so there's different ways that you can either have it so that on a particular user action that the deferred view is loaded, and you can prefetch it so that, okay, you have your initial load, and even if the user doesn't perform some action, that it will just kind of continue to load it, when it can. It won't stop the rendering, which is important, which is the most important thing that you're shooting for, but it will, in the background, load it. So there's, a lot, the way they have this is pretty tight syntax. I do I was involved with a lot of the iterations of, they had all sorts of variations of how, from a developer like user experience, like how you actually define this stuff. And I think the final product that they have here with the new control flow syntax is really simple, really easy to understand. I think it is the best of all the different options that they had available. So, I mean, Jessica goes into or looking to the future and kind of how they're using deferrable views. I wanted to, and that's sort of how it ends up. But I sort of want to give my take on this. Basically, with the way that they're implementing it right now, it's super powerful, and would highly recommend if you are really interested in squeezing every ounce of performance out of your app. It's definitely something that you should look into. You should utilize along with a lot of the other features that Angular has. In the future, they can build on this to do even more amazing things. So one thing that I think a lot about is Misko, who created Angular initially, went off and created a new framework since he left Angular for Builder.io, which is a new company that does CMS stuff. And he built this other framework called Quick. And his thing within Quick that he sort of has been heavily promoting is this concept of resumability, which part of that is essentially deferrable views. Like they have that part in Quick. And so that is something where now Angular has a somewhat similar feature. But resumability also includes this concept where you start off on the server with a particular state of the app, and then that state kind of continues on the client once it loads. So there is this one piece that's not quite there yet for the resumability piece, but because we've taken this step towards it with deferrable views, and also other things like signals and that allow it to make things in theory easier to serialize the internal state of your application. Angular is not that far away, and it is, like, crazy enough feasible at some point in the future to do some of the things similar to what Quick does with resumability. So that's one of the things that I'm excited about. And I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of this stuff, these are approaches to ultimately create the best user experience. So, like, let's not lose focus on the fact that, forget about all the terms. We want the best user experience in most cases when you're building an application. So don't necessarily worry about that, this feature, that feature, but it does help to have these things, because once you really get into the weeds and you are really interested in different types of user experiences and getting the best thing, these are some really powerful tools to help you when you need them. That's all I have for today. Thanks for listening. Comment below if you have any of your thoughts, and look forward to seeing you all again next time on Tech Time Today.